Hello Internet, I am the Hero of Julios once again with another installment of the Preparing for Set 3 series. In this episode we're going to be going over the new black cards coming, and boy howdy do they have a lot of new things to go over. So let's start off of course with the leader cards, starting with Rob Lucci. A 5000 power, 5 life, CP9 leader card. Rob Lucci's ability is your turn once per turn. You may discard 2 cards from your hand. When an opponent's character is KO'd, set this leader to active. This card, I will say, does fit the bloodlust of Rob Lucci himself, loving to see someone fall in battle before he restands. From what I've heard, this deck is strong in Japan, but I don't think it's because of this leader's effect. It feels like black was originally going to be a KO based on cost color, but it feels kind of like this specific deck is going to be a play from your trash color as well. Being able to attack your leader twice is nice, as Eustace Kid taught us, and because of that I feel like this is going to be an A tier leader. Our other leader in question is Charlotte Linlin, a 5000 power, 4 life leader who is both black and yellow, a wonderful fusion with our newest color. Her ability requires her to have 2 Dawn attached. When attacking, we can rest 2 Dawn and trash 1 card from our hand. If we have 1 or fewer cards in our life area, we can put up to 1 card from the top of our deck on top of our life area. Seeing as this is Big Mom's second leader card, and yes, I'm counting her yellow starter deck leader as her first one, Big Mom has finally hit the scene in a pretty big way. Her ability may cost you 4 Dawn overall, but to gain a life card without losing a life card is impressive given the rest of the yellow cards, which I'll go over in the next video. I will go into more detail when I talk about yellow cards, but as a Digimon player, I'm interested to see how yellow and its whole recovery function goes as this leader plays out in the future. There are a ton of resources demanded from this ability, as you need to trash a card and have 1 life left. But the power to combine the already strong black with the new and pretty strong yellow cards might just be all Linlin needs to be an A tier leader. Black is still 1 set behind the other colors, but it will be getting a starter deck soon. Because of this, it does get a couple more vanilla cards than the other colors do. We have Kumadori, a 4 cost to play, 6000 power with 1000 counter, Jerry, a 2 cost to play, 4000 power with 1000 counter, Jabra, the 5 cost to play, 7000 power with 1000 counter, and Nero, a 3 cost to play, 5000 power, 1000 counter. All 4 of these vanillas are Cypher Pull agents, which means they will work with Cypher Pull cards, but there are better cards to choose from for your deck for this set. Going into cards with abilities, we have Corgi, a 1 cost to play, 0 power, counter 1000 character. His on play lets us look at the top 5 cards of our deck and place 2 of them in the trash, then place the remaining cards on the bottom of our deck in any order. We look at the top 5 and we trash 2, which is a great ability considering we do need things in the trash for other cards. However, there is another better card that does roughly the same without costing you bottom decking something important. Because of this, Corgi already starts off in the B tier, despite my usual A tier going to Searchers. That is because another 1 cost character we have is Spandam, the 1 cost to play, 2000 power, 1000 counter, with the on play effect that lets us look at the top 3 cards of our deck. We reveal 1 card with CP in its traits other than Spandam and add it to our hand, then we trash the remaining cards. He's got more power than Corgi, the same counter power, and you get to keep 1 of the 3 cards he looks for. Keeping with Cypher Pull's theme of needing cards in the trash, the other 2 cards are gonna go to the trash anyways. It's like Corgi was just made to make Spandam look more appealing. Congratulations Spandam, you got a good card, but I don't think this is gonna gain you any new fans in the series. However, I will say that this card is definitely A tier, as it is a very good searcher that definitely supports the deck he was designed for. The last of our 1 costs is an interesting one. Helmeppo has a 1 cost to play, 0 power, 1000 counter, with the on play, reduce the cost of up to 1 of your opponent's characters without any original effects to 0 during this turn. I think if leaders like the Set 2 Sanji start becoming a threat, this card will gain a God Complex, but for now it's nice. I wouldn't run a full playset of this card, maybe one if I'm really worried about certain vanillas in my opponent's deck. I think if he was a 2k counter, he would be a lot more sought after, but then I think that might make him too strong depending on what shows up in the future. For now, I'm putting him in the D tier. With our 2-cost characters, we start off with Brand New, a 2-cost to play, 3000 power with 1000 counter. His on play lets us look at the top 3 cards of our deck, we reveal a Navy type card other than Brand New, and add it to our hand, then we trash the remaining cards. Navy finally has a searcher that trashes. Eventually, Navy will need cards in trash, but for now, going to the trash is roughly the same as going to the bottom of the deck, so I don't really see an issue with this either way. The reason I don't feel that way about Corgi is because you don't gain a card from him. Because of this, Brand New, having been a searcher and adding a card to our hand, gets the A tier spot. Our other black 2-cost is Wanze, 2-cost to play, 4000 power with no counter. His on-play ability, we can discard 1 card from our hand, and if our leader has the Cipher Pole in its type, KO up to one of our opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less. I like this guy, and I'm glad he's getting a card. He's a goofy enough character, he deserves one. His on-play lets you KO a 1-cost, something black can definitely take advantage of, but you do have the risk of no counter, so I wouldn't put him in your deck if you were already lacking power in the counter department. Overall, giving Wanze a C tier. Good job, Noodle Boy. The only 3-cost we're getting in black is Fukuro, a 3-cost to play, 3000 power, 1000 counter blocker. But what makes him special is, this character cannot be KO'd by effects. This is a discount Borsalino. He doesn't have to block if you don't want him to, and can't be KO'd by the likes of Newgate and Robin. You combine him with Borsalino, and you have an almost invincible wall waiting to protect you from those last few hits. Honestly, I usually just leave blockers in their own tier, but I am going to give Fukuro S tier because I think this is going to be an almost permanent card in every black deck. The only 4-cost we're getting for black is Califa, 4-cost to play, 4000 power with 2000 counter. Her on play lets us draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards from our hand. Then, we reduce the cost of up to one of our opponent's characters by 2 for the turn. Being a 2k counter already makes her good, but being able to draw 2 and trash 2, and give -2 for only 4 Dawn makes her great. She does suffer from only being a 4k body, but her on play means that her ability will happen, whether your opponent gets rid of her or not. Just be glad we can't bounce her back to hand. Yet. Because of this, I am going to set Califa down as an A tier card. Starting off our 5-cost characters, we have Virgo, 5-cost to play, 5000 power with 2000 counter, and if he has a Dawn attached to him, this character cannot be KO'd by battle. I will say, in a sealed format, Virgo is absolutely terrifying. I've actually been to pre-releases now, and as of making this, yeah, he was horribly terrifying to face off against since there was nothing to really get rid of him except for battle itself. What's nice about Virgo is he will force out the jet pistols and bouncing effects of your opponents, but colors that focus on resting your opponent's characters like green don't really have a lot of ways to deal with this guy. It might be something to consider if solid green leaders start becoming a threat again. For now, I'm going to put Virgo in B tier. The next card we'll be discussing is the Longnose himself, Kaku. 5-cost to play, 6000 power with 1000 counter. His on play lets you return 2 cards with their type including CP from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order. You can then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less. With the ability to take out most blockers as soon as he comes to the board, or even bigger threats if you set things up beforehand, this is just the beginning of why Cipher Pole wants cards in trash. This makes Kaku a pretty good A tier card. The last of our 5 drops is Bluno, a 5-cost to play, 6000 power with 1000 counter. His effect, Dawn 1, this character gains blocker. His on KO effect lets you play up to one character that costs 4 or less whose type contains CP from your trash and rest it. Because Cipher Pole needed another blocker, right? But it's honestly the playing a cost 4 from trash that makes this guy dangerous. You can bring back Califa to take out a small threat or draw more cards, or play Fukuro for a second blocker, or just start searching again with Spandam. All in all, this makes Bluno a pretty strong A-tier card. And rounding off our Cypher Pull agents is the 6 cost to play 7000 power Rob Lucci, whose on play is you may return 2 cards with the type including CP from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order. This character then gains Rush for the turn. Black with Rush, that's already a major threat to begin with. This card is why Black has begun to play from the trash. You combine him with Fukuro, and your opponent will have a hard time taking him out even after you've used the Rush ability. I'm going to put him down as a B tier though, because it's still a lot of Dawn to play for just a 7k swing, which, you know, that's Dawn you could have spent on a character you already had, but if your board's empty, he can be a pretty good comeback move. Our final character is the 8 cost Isho, with 9000 power and a Dawn 1 ability to give all of your opponent's characters -3 to their cost. His on play is if your opponent has 6 or more cards in their hand, your opponent must trash 2 cards from their hand. Our final character is the 8 cost Isho, with 9000 power and a Dawn 1 ability to give all of your opponent's characters -3 to their cost. His on play is if your opponent has 6 or more cards in their hand, trash 2 cards from your opponent's hand. That means you have a chance of randomly taking out 2 potential threats from your opponent's hand. Fujitora is a big guy who can take out big hands. With the right leader card, he's good for taking down mid-level threats and is a whopping 10k swing on top of his ability. This is easily an S tier Admiral. Moving on to our event cards, we have 6 King Pistol for a cost of 0. Its counter lets us trash 1 card from our hand and give up to one of our leaders or characters 3000 power during this battle. Its trigger effect lets us draw 1 card, then KO up to one of our opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less. Honestly, this is another 0 trash a card to gain 3000 power, just like almost all the other colors have. But, unlike other colors, you want cards in the trash, so as far as this effect goes, it's slightly better than the other colored counterparts. Because of this, I would give this card C tier instead of the D I gave another one, considering you want to trash cards this time. Our next event card is Soap Sheep, a 1 cost with the main effect, give up to 2 of your opponent's characters -2 Dawn to their cost for this turn. Its trigger effect, your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. I think this would be a fantastic setup for the set 1 King card if you're running Zephyr. However, it's still a good setup if you're trying to use 2 KO effects. Because of this and its interesting trigger, I'm going to put this one in the B tier. Our next event is the 2 cost Tempest Kick Sky Slicer. Its main effect lets us KO up to one of our opponent's characters with a cost of 0, or stages with a cost of 3 or less. Its trigger effect lets us draw 2 cards, which is pretty nifty. There are no stages in the game that cost more than 3 right now, so this card is an answer to all decks that use stages. It's too bad that the only super powerful deck that uses a stage card is losing its stage card due to the ban list, but still, it's a good card for its trigger, but honestly we'll have to wait and see how this card turns out in later sets. I would have given it a tier higher than D if the Moby Dick was still in the game, but its potential to be great as more stages are added could give it a different ranking in the future. Our final event card is the 4 cost Air Door. With the main effect, if your leader has CP in its types, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 cost 5 or less character card with the CP in its type and play it. Trash the remaining cards. Its trigger effect lets us choose up to 1 cost 3 or lower black character from our trash and play it. It's a trigger that plays from the trash, but its main effect lets you play a cost 5 for only 4 Dawn. I think this is a great card, especially if you went second and can play this on curve perfectly. I would even dare to say that this may be an S tier card, given everything that it can potentially pull off. Our final black card is the 2 cost stage card, Ennis Lobby. Its activate main effect is you may rest this stage. If your leader has CP in its types, give up to one of your opponent's characters -2 cost during this turn. and it even has a trigger effect that lets you play it straight from the life. This card is, simply put, a better Marine HQ, as it gives a -2 rather than a -1, and it has a trigger that plays it. Even though it doesn't have the on play, that's perfectly fine because regardless of how you do it, you're still going to have a -2 at the end of the day. If you're going to lean towards the cost-based KO effects, this is the card to go with in your Lucci deck, which is the only deck you can use for this right now, but that's fine because Lucci is a pretty strong leader. As a result, I'm giving his stage an A tier as well. I would say you'll need to mentally prepare yourselves this time, my fellow collectors, as not only do we have 2 leader cards in this color, but there are also 5 alternate arts here, and this deck will be strong, so they're all going to be desired. I would say my guess, if I was just going off initial reactions to the images shown, I would say that maybe Califas will be the most sought after, but that's just a hunch. Overall, Black introduces the first few cards that play from the trash, something I'm familiar with from playing Purple in Digimon. Between Spandam, Wanze, Califa, and Corgi, I suppose, you can control what's in your trash and guarantee Lucci and Kaku's effects go off. I can see why it's going to be strong from the amount of card manipulation involved, but it needs a bit of setup to pull it off. This is going to be probably a bigger brain deck, and I, as a Unga Bunga red player, might only just give it a try. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to be the most powerful options to put into your Black deck. And maybe I'm missing something here with the power of Corgi. I still think Spandam's a better card, but I am, of course, excited to see where the meta is going to go for the next few months. Thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.